A bully bullies when he's feeling insecure. So what is Trump so insecure about that he's willing to bully America's closest allies into a global trade war? Now, there are many reasons why Donald Trump may want to reshape the entire global economy, but one glaring insecurity is a resource that America desperately needs and has virtually no control over: rare earth metals. These metals are essential to the drones, missile defenses, and advanced weaponry that the United States supplies to its proxies, Israel and Ukraine, at a seemingly endless supply. But here's the problem. China, America's principal adversary, has a near monopoly on the mining and refining of these metals. And as tensions rise between the two superpowers, China is starting to cut America off from these resources. So one goal of the Trump doctrine is to reshape global supply chains to make sure America's military industrial base has secure access to these resources. And that's where the economic bullying comes in. In countries like Greenland and Canada, which have vast reserves of rare earth minerals on untapped indigenous lands, Trump has placed tariffs and even threatened to annex them for their resources. In Canada, those threats backfired against conservatives and led to a liberal government to come back to power on a promise to fight back against Trump.
President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen, because we are going to build, baby, build.
But now, Indigenous activists are sounding the alarm. They say that the politicians in Canada are taking their cues from what America wants, even if they claim to be against Trump. The new liberal agenda in Canada is abandoning human rights and environmental concerns to fast-track resource extraction projects, all in the name of preparing for a future defined by Trumpism. So the question becomes, is Trump's bullying making the rest of the world more like him? On Canada Day, hundreds of activists gathered outside of Ontario's legislature in Toronto to support Indigenous leaders who've been camped out there for a month, protesting against the new Liberal Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and his signature economic bill.
These federal and provincial bills will result in an escalation and exploitation that will continue to create sacrifice zones with negative impacts on human health and once pristine biodiverse territories, all for temporary, mostly male-dominated jobs and short-term economic gains for giant corporations.
Bill C-5 gives the federal government power to designate resource and infrastructure projects as in the national interest, which lets corporations bypass environmental and Indigenous rights regulations.
It's a very big colonial flex that they're doing right now, all in the name of greed, and that's just in the interest of the empire, of the Canadian Empire, which was formerly under the Crown, right? And they still like to talk about the Crown, right? So it's all colonial. It's not really all the people. They don't care about Native people. They don't want Native people.
The protesters marched, and they were met by a line of police. As protesters in Toronto were arrested, Carney was celebrating Canada's birthday and his new bill.
Our economy is being buffeted by a trade war we didn't start. Our values are being tested. As the world becomes more divided and dangerous, Canadians are uniting. Together, we will build one Canadian economy.
Carney's bill could undo years of progress made by the last Liberal government, which in 2021 enshrined the right to free, prior, and informed consent of Indigenous nations. By sidelining these rights, human rights groups are warning that Carney's reforms could push Canada towards authoritarianism.
It's a white supremacist, dog whistle is what it is. That's what I saw. That's what I saw, a white supremacist under the guise of nationalism to combat Trump. We're just mirroring that stuff that's happening in the States that's so toxic and dividing their country. We're mirroring the same thing right here, right now.
Carney has plans to meet with Indigenous leaders later this month. He argues that consulting with them is central to his reforms, and he wants to bring more First Nations into the Canadian political process. But activists say that's not the same as the right to say no.
We don't want settler politics. That is a system of impoverishment, of classism, of imbalance. It is not a democratic system. Everybody's not included, or we wouldn't have the poverty in this country that we have. No, we don't want to be part of a gross system that creates imbalance and exploits people and exploits labor and creates a system of classism. It's not who we are. That's not land back. That's not what we want. I don't want to be a Canadian. I'm an Anishinaabe, and I'm very proud of that. And of everything that's happened to me in my life and all the violence that's happened to me because I look like this, I don't want to be white, and I don't want to fit into white society. I don't want to be part of that violence. It's not who I am.
Reporting on these Indigenous protests, I've learned to look at geopolitics from a totally different lens. In the mainstream, we're conditioned to believe that liberals and conservatives are polar opposites of each other. But what's the difference between them to First Nations? I mean, if a liberal Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, wants to sell off Indigenous burial sites so that foreign corporations can come in and mine them and profit off those lands, isn't that colonization? And what's the difference between that and what Donald Trump wants to do? Etching his face into Mount Rushmore, which is continuing the colonial desecration of the Black Hills, a sacred site to the Lakota Sioux First Nation. So if I've learned something from speaking to the activists at this protest, it's this. We can't just be conditioned to be skeptical of the conservative strongman who's bullying the world to shape it in his image. We also have to be skeptical of the liberal leaders who use the fear of those strongmen to monopolize power for themselves. Guys, thanks so much for supporting my journalism. If you haven't had a chance yet, head to my link in bio and subscribe to me on Patreon. You can subscribe for free or as little as $1 a month, and that money helps keep me going. This work is not possible without the support of viewers like you, and I'm hoping to build this channel into one that sustains me so I can continue to do this work in the long run and not just continue to live off my savings. For all of my existing subscribers, I want to thank you all so much for your support, and for those that are considering, please do so. I'm looking forward to bringing you new reports. Thanks so much, and I'll see y'all on the next one.